Ripped. Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Hogan announces legislative priorities for the new year. No new taxes. Why did Montgomery County officials shut down a backyard ice rink? Let's change the state's song already. And 2016 political predictions. Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by Democratic Party insider Sam Statland, former president of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, former Republican candidate for state Senate, Jerry Cave, and political strategist Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Despite the lack of cold weather this winter, one Poolesville family decided to build a backyard hockey rink in memory of their late stepdaughter. While uncommon in the area, backyard ice rinks are usual in the chillier northeastern states. But unfortunately for Mark Cohn and his family, they don't live in those states. No, they live in the People's Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland, where you have to get an imprimatur from the county government even to have fun in your own backyard. Sam, Mr. Cohn's neighbors have flocked to the rink to enjoy the skating. But county officials, just like Scrooge, have told Mr. Cohn that they have to shut it down. Why is the county taking this big brother attitude over a backyard ice rink?
Well, Casey, it's in the Ag Reserve, of course, and if it's in the Ag Reserve, you're not allowed to have those kind of things going in the reserve.
It's on their property.
Well, that's what he said as well. And as a matter of fact, as it turns out, there are other instances where people are having chargeable events on their property. You know, it's another example of where Montgomery County just doesn't know when to quit. And I wish they'd stop doing this kind of stuff. Let the people skate. Stop spending our money.
Thank you, Sam. Mark, county officials say rules are rules and they have to be obeyed. Is that fair?
It's not fair, and I think they're all, as you mentioned, all over the northern part of the country. There are lots of these rinks that people build, and it's certainly something that people in rural areas or agricultural areas or real agricultural areas, as opposed to what we call the agricultural reserve, do on a regular basis. This is Montgomery County at its worst.
I grew up in the north.
Yes, you did.
In Minnesota. Yes, I'm proud of that too. And if we were talking about a small little ice rink, this rink is huge. Not only are they just sharing it, they had it on Facebook, they smattered it all over the place. There has been at least one complaint, and the liability insurance, I think, could be a bit much, and rules are rules. And, you know, I think that having a skating rink of that size is like the problem. If they had a little small...
It's their own property, Sue.
I know, but it's in the Ag Reserve, and there are rules.
As long as it's reserve.
This is a perfect example of what's wrong with Democrats, which is, of course, everything. They are all about control. They want to control an ice rink in the back of somebody's house, and you guys are geographically mixed up. You're thinking about up north. Down south, they have a really good way to deal with these things. They had a whole bunch of laws and go, well, we ain't enforcing that one. That one we will, but not one not. This is stupid, and it's an example of Democrats.
I know, but the
Control.
The liability.
That's a separate issue.
Liability.
It's his liability, his insurance.
But it's his liability.
Leave him alone. You don't need to control everybody's life.
But it's huge. We aren't talking a little skating rink.
It does nothing.
Huge is huge.
Look, if
It's
I don't like an
2,300
ice
square
rink,
feet.
I don't go. I don't care. You don't like an ice rink. You don't think they should
Well,
have one.
if they are concerned about having a skating rink for the children in the neighborhood, fine. But you don't plaster it all over the internet saying, come skate.
They have a name for that. It's called freedom.
The problem is that the county has not properly enforced regulations on the Ag Reserve. So on one side, if nobody complains, you get away with it. And on the other side, if somebody complains, you don't. There's no consistency. Same thing with the Purple Line. Why were people allowed to build in the right-of-way? Just to have legal fights over it? Because the county didn't enforce
They've
the
got
law.
3 weeks to get everything down.
Well,
We're
that's
moving
beside the
forward.
point.
Well,
thank
but
you.
The point
let's-
is
the
that
issue
there's
is
no
about
consistency. And unless it's the right-of-way for the extension of 270 going across the river, I don't think anybody has any complaint.
Thank God for the quality of our problems, that we can complain about an ice rink in somebody's backyard.
Well, no, but
There's
the-
people that don't
the-
have enough
the
food
issue,
to
The
eat.
issue is whether you have control of your own private property. That's the issue here.
Casey, unless you have noticed, I'm on your side.
Well, but Casey, then you can go to the city of Houston where they have no zoning issues, and you have McDonald's next to a big mansion next
Yeah.
to something.
And what's wrong with that?
That's what they want.
What's
Well-
wrong with that, Susan?
Can we move along
it
here?
is
Coming
a
back to that
mess.
Have we
freedom
beat this to
thing.
death?
The
We're devoting too much time to this.
No,
This is an
you know,
insignificant topic.
We are going to move on to another topic, but
Thank
it's
you.
not an insignificant
It
topic.
is.
It's
Because
exciting.
this is a typical issue for
Look, they're
Montgomery
trying to
County.
broker a deal.
How Montgomery County, well,
We can-
great. I'm glad they're going to
Actually, you're both right. It
broker a
is
deal.
insignificant, and the county ought to let go of it.
And
All right,
we
well,
can-
we're going to let go of it now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan, which is much more important because he's beginning his second year in office. He started office this week, and yesterday he announced his legislative agenda, which, like last year's agenda, is to lower taxes for small businesses, retirees, and working families. Now, Hogan is sure to receive opposition from the leaders of the Democratic-led General Assembly, who have already vowed to increase funding for education in Baltimore City. Susan, Hogan vowed to curb state spending and reverse tax increases. But how is he going to be able to keep his promise now that the state is showing a projected $750 million budget surplus?
One of the things, and we don't really know his budget because they only released part of it, and they're going to wait until his speech and when he has to put his budget in towards the end of the month. But they have said that they want to be able to decrease mandates. Senator Rich Manalino said, you know what, that's the Senate and the House's jobs if we get to a point like that to make decisions. The one thing that I will say kudos to the governor is he is not going to challenge the legislature this year on education funding. And that was his big problem last year. So I think on this one, we need to wait to see what he's truly talking about. And we just have a little snippet of what he's really going to do.
All right, thanks, Susan. Now, Jerry, does it come as a surprise that the Maryland Democrats, as reported in the Baltimore Sun today, are pushing to use Obamacare as a voter registration drive?
Nothing surprised me about the Democrats when it comes to voting. What the Democrats in Maryland would like to do is what they're doing in California, which is giving illegal aliens the right to vote. I don't think that the people in the Congress and the Senate ought to recognize the delegates from California because they're giving illegals.
Let's stick to Maryland.
Yeah, okay, they want to do Obamacare. They let you register at the DMV. They're setting it up for fraud, anything they can do, and what they love to do is to get people who are dependent on the government to vote to increase their power. They're not trying to spread liberty and freedom and democracy. They're just trying to get
That's what voting,
more of their
that's
constituents
what
in
voting
there.
is about, Jerry. Liberty, freedom, and the right to participate.
Now that
Listen.
the right wing has spoken, can we come back to the governor
I want
for a
to
second?
go back
I
to
was gonna
His
say,
Mark
budget
on
on education, he's increasing the funding on education. As far as the mandates go, mandated increases I've never believed in because what it does is it allows for automatic budget increases without oversight. I would rather see, both in subcommittee, committee, and on the floor, delegates and senators vote on whether or not a budget should be increased. I don't think it should automatically go up 2 or 3%. I don't think the gas tax should automatically go up. I think that takes things away from democracy.
I am glad
and
that
these
Sam
guys
has come
don't.
over to the right wing.
I want to go to
He's
Mark.
on the right
I want to go to
path.
Mark
Come
on this.
brother.
So I want to go to Mark on this. Next.
Well, let me go back. I agree. I think when coming back to the budget issue, one of the things that we need to keep in mind is under the Maryland law, the governor sets the budget if it's increased because basically all of these mandates are going to be funded, at least that's what the governor indicates, and therefore the issues that we had last year won't come up. The only way to increase spending will be to link it specifically with tax increases, and
Or-
there are tax increases
wait a
that will be
second.
end up
Or
getting vetoed.
adjusting the budget. Now, one of the proposals was a 2% cut across the board. Whether that's good, whether that's bad, I don't know. But I also understand that Mike Miller and Bush have been kind of neutral at this point in time. They haven't condemned anything he's proposed, and seem to be willing to go along
Would
because
he-
in the
Wait a minute,
long run,
everybody is
let me make this point. In the long run, the governor has great acceptance amongst the voters of the state of Maryland. And I think that Democratic leadership has to be very concerned that if they come too hard and against the governor, all they'll do is force more Republicans to be elected to office.
You all are missing the 3 big points here. Number one, we've gone from having structural billion and a half deficits, and in Hogan's first year, we now have a $750
Thank you
billion
to President
surplus.
Obama and changing the
You
economy
know,
around.
whatever you're smoking, Susan, I got to get some of that.
Well,
later.
you know, the
Wait
great
a
news-
second,
the great
you're missing
news,
the other
Jerry,
point.
is- Jerry,
they spend
quickly.
more money on education in Baltimore than they do in Montgomery County. The education's terrible. It's got nothing to do with money.
Jerry.
And we aren't reducing the taxes because of the budget. We're reducing them to get more jobs, and we still need them.
Thank you, Jerry. Jerry, you got your point in. When we come back from this short break, should Maryland, My Maryland be replaced as the state's official song? And our predictions for 2016. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Back in the golden age of television, one of the staples for every teenager was American Bandstand on Saturday afternoon, where a weekly feature was to play a newly released song, and a group of motley teens would be asked to judge its merits. And typically the responses were, well, it had a great beat, it was easy to dance to, but the lyrics, they were awful. Now the Maryland General Assembly is being asked the same question about the state's official song, Maryland, My Maryland, since somebody finally listened to the lyrics 155 years after the song was written. Susan, is it time to change the state song?
Well, a la Dick Clark's show, the lyrics are awful. They bash the North. They promote the Southern rebels. There's parts of it that are probably okay, but I think we are all a lot more sensitive these days than we used to be, and I think it's time to do some changing. There are other lovely songs out there, and as someone said, the Star Spangled Banner is truly ours. That could become our state song.
Jerry.
I happen to be quite an authority on this because my great-grandfather survived the entire Civil War.
Which
from
side?
From first Manassas to Appomattox. And I have been amazed since I was a child, because this is the only country where you could have had a civil war and the losing side gets to have statues, they get to name forts after their heroes, and they get to be in the songs. It's unbelievable that it's gone on this long. Now, on the other hand, the only other people that take historical things down and want them to go away are the Taliban. These things are there. So just let them be
It
there
isn't a
and stop being
statue,
the
Jerry.
Taliban.
It's just
There is
words
only-
in a song.
There's
Change
only
the
one thing
song.
wrong with it. It's got that term, northern scum, and grammatically that's redundant, and of course that could be a problem.
You can always go to the National Archives or the state capitol and read the song. You don't have to
I knew what
bash.
this song was when I was
Here-
10 years
here's-
old. It's
here's-
not
It
new.
was really
Here's-
interesting. I've
here's-
never seen, nowhere in the newspapers with this going on has anybody published, neither the Post or the Sun published the words to the song.
Here
I
is,
knew- I grew up here,
here
I know
is
it.
an historic moment on this show. I agree with Susan. Jerry, you're wrong.
Mark, this has got to be a present.
Well, I listen
to my
since
heartbeat.
we're giving kudos out here.
You got to get back on the
I'm-
medication, Mark.
I'm going to give kudos to Cynthia Rubenstein, who a month ago, in her parting shot, predicted that this song should be taken down as the official state song.
And do you agree with that, Casey?
I absolutely do.
Oh
All right.
my God, Casey, this is a first.
I know.
My friend
Get,
Casey.
get ready for a cold
day in hell.
January, because
Why don't we just keep wiping out all of the history?
Bunch
Wait,
of
wait,
Are you going to
Yankees.
wait a
change
minute.
Fort Hood?
Okay,
to
now we're
Texas?
getting to the good stuff.
Let's
We're
change
getting
Fort
the good-
Hood.
We're getting to the good stuff now, Jerry. The 2016 is an election year, and we're going to give our predictions. Will Elijah Cummings run for the Senate? Sam?
No, he won't, because he just sent out a fundraising invite, and it mentions his congressional campaign and nothing about an exploratory mission or anything for a Senate race. Elijah is going to be a leader in the new Democratic Congress.
Mark?
Well, yeah, Sam, you were right about the first part, wrong about the second part. I don't think he's going to run for the Senate.
Jerry?
When he found out Kathy Schlegel was running on the Republican side, man, that was the end of that decision.
Good, Jerry.
Who?
Susan?
I've said for months he's not going to run. He's not. He's going to continue to proudly represent the city of Baltimore in Congress.
All right. How soon before Democratic leaders Mike Miller and Mike Bush sabotage Larry Hogan like they did former Republican Governor Bob Ehrlich? Susan.
They don't sabotage, they work together as Democrats, and that's the way the process works. Just think about Congress and the way the Republicans treat Democratic President Obama. It's the way the process works.
Sam.
Part of the process is this attitude. It's either Democratic or it's Republican, and there's no coming together in the middle. And I think that both Miller
And Bush.
have a leaf out there, an oak leaf, a peace leaf, and I think that they're being very kind and going to work with the governor.
You think the oak leaf was the fact that they announced that they were going to overturn the vetoes that Governor Hogan vetoed last year?
I think that's just dancing. I think that's
You think
just
that's dancing?
Doves
Mark.
and butterflies are
Mark.
going to be released
I
next.
got to
Exactly.
say, there are two states, Pennsylvania and Illinois, that still don't have a budget from 6 months ago.
Yep.
Things are not as bad as Maryland as some other states.
Jerry.
How can you put that in the future tense? It's in the past tense. Their raison d'etre is to make sure Hogan doesn't get elected because of two reasons. It would be humiliating, and also, if Hogan gets reelected for redistricting, it'll change the dynamic here. Everything they have done, will do, is to make sure Larry Hogan doesn't get reelected, but he got 62%
And is he gonna-
right now.
All right.
which in the end could hurt the Democrats.
Thank you. Will there be, now this is going to be a curious question, will there be infighting on the Montgomery County Council as those council members begin to position themselves to run for county executive? Jerry.
Of course.
Mark.
The county council is a little like scorpions in a bottle with 9 members.
Sam.
Or Siamese fighting fish.
Susan.
Instead of infighting, I would hope that they would work their darndest to get good legislative done and be good representatives of their district in the county.
It's an election year.
It is. Well, no, it's a couple of years off. I'd like them to have a little peace for a while and actually
All right,
work.
now we're going to turn to the national scene. Who will win the Iowa caucuses in both parties? We'll start with you, Susan.
Ted Cruz and Hillary Clinton.
Jerry.
Ted Cruz and the enabler for the predator, Bill Clinton.
Mark.
Here I have to agree
did he
with
say?
Jerry and Susan, at least it'll be Clinton and Cruz.
Sam.
Clinton and Cruz.
Okay.
Now, since Cruz is rising in your estimation at least, is he eligible to be president, Sam?
Well, it's quite obvious to me that he's not a U.S. citizen. He was born in Canada. And to take a lead from my Republican cohorts on Obama, the guy doesn't deserve. I want to see his birth certificate.
Good. Susan.
He does have a Canadian birth certificate. I mean, a Canadian passport. I think
Not
I
any-
He
have
denied that.
listened to multiple extended conversations with legal experts to be determined, I think.
Jerry.
In addition to his many accolades, this guy is great. He could be head of state of the United States or Canada.
And he's eligible
Mark.
to be president of the United
He actually
States.
gave up
period.
his dual citizenship with Canada, and apparently the legal opinion is that he can. That he's a natural born. He was born of an American mother.
His mother was born in
Yep.
Delaware. I mean, I love how we get sidetracked on these bizarre issues. All
Why
right.
we're here.
That's why we're here? Okay.
To sidetrack the whole world.
All right, so here's the real question. Will the man of the hour, Donald Trump, self-destruct before Super Tuesday? Mark.
I think he has already, but nobody's noticed. So I guess not.
I guess he hasn't then, right?
Yes.
Sam.
I think there's a real possibility that he could be the nominee of the Republican Party, especially with so much anti-establishment sentiment out there on both sides, Democrat, Republican, well, 3 sides, and independent.
Susan.
I think he is slowly self-destructing. I think that now he's done this new phase where he's not criticizing anybody. I think,
Except Bill Clinton.
No, he stopped last night. He did nothing. So I don't know. I'm hoping he destructs. That's what I'm hoping.
Jerry.
This is the worst grammar night you have ever had. That should not be a reflexive verb. When you use the word Trump and destruct, he has destroyed the establishment in both the Democrat and Republican Party. He has destroyed all his competitors. And the best thing was, at the end of Peggy Noonan's article, editorial in Wall Street Journal, she concluded, she buried the lead. She goes, I find his most ardent supporters are Democrats and independents. Trump is going to destroy things, but it ain't going to be Trump.
What I find just amazing is how, by all rational means, by all rational tests, he shouldn't even be considered as a candidate.
A candidate in
It's
the past
amazing.
saying what he says would have survived
So,
the
Jerry,
day.
You know
Is this
what?
your guy, Jerry?
It's what happens. The truth will set you free, but first it'll tick you off, and you guys are still in the first stage.
Well, I think it's just amazing. All right, so on to our next question. Will Hillary Clinton be indicted by the FBI? Jerry.
How can they, if they don't, how can they ever indict any other federal employee? Because any federal employee did any one of the 2,000 things she did, she would be indicted.
Susan.
Republicans only wish no.
Sam.
No.
Mark.
The chances are that the FBI will recommend an indictment, but the Justice Department won't act, and that will set up an interesting scenario for the election.
Really? That's quite an
That's interesting.
That's an interesting comment. Huh.
You never said that to me.
There's a reason for that, Jerry. All right, turning to look at international affairs. Will China's economy, which has devalued their currency 3 times in the last 2 months, have a meltdown? Mark.
I think it's having a meltdown, a debt meltdown, right as we speak. They can't borrow any more money to keep their economy going, and they're having a hell of a problem.
Jerry.
I think Brother Uncapher is right. I think it might be in progress.
Susan.
6 months ago, to stave this off, they said that people they couldn't sell X number of stocks, and so now this selling off is going on, and their economy is changing like other economies from our manufacturing, and I think it's going on right now as we see it.
And the underlying cause of a lot of this is that you have a generational gap in leadership, where younger members of the Communist Party in China want to be more worldly, more open, and more transparent than the current regime. And with the current regime, you don't even know where their economy is.
Well, thank you, panel. It's all pretty fascinating and interesting. We'll see what happens in the weeks and months ahead. When we come back, parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Mark Uncapher.
Casey, this week the president announced his new gun control regulations, and in response to it, the Smith & Wesson stock, one of the large manufacturers, jumped by over 10% because of the expectation that more guns would be sold. All I can say is I can't think of any better evidence of the disconnect over this particular issue of two sides that just simply talk past each other.
Thank you, Mark. Sam.
Well, folks, this is going to be a really exciting weekend. And what's going to be exciting is Redskins 27, Green Bay 14, and this city is going to rock and roll as it hasn't for the past 20 years.
Yes, Sam. Like that prediction. Susan.
This week, County Executive Leggett sent over the name of Howie Dennis to the County Council to serve on the Washington Suburban Sanitation Committee. I think this is a wonderful appointee because he was on the county council, he served in the state legislature, and he served in the he worked in Congress. So go Howie. Also go Montgomery County delegation as you start the legislative session on Wednesday, and go Gophers. I got Gophers. Vikings, I get my teams mixed up. Vikings beat the Seahawks. It's going to be tough in 1 degree.
Dreamer. You're
The one
dreaming.
thing you forgot about Howie Dennis, Susan, he was an original panelist on 21 This Week.
And a
Jerry.
good guy.
The Clintons are finally going to face the music. Bill Clinton's behavior as a sexual predator was disgusting, and it was documented. Her behavior as his enabler was worse, and she is now going to have to answer, not for his behavior, but for hers.
Thank you, Jerry. And I want to thank the panel for being here to kick off 2016 in an appropriate manner. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show. For 21 This Week, I'm Casey Aiken. And remember, you can watch us on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays, and you can follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Did I do that right?
Got
I
it
did
right.
it right.
Way to go.
End of message.